Everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom, the program that is focused for the foreseeable future on talking about things in the church that really should not be in the church. And we're going to begin. I'm going to begin tonight. I will tell you, a few days ago, I was sent a link that I knew the link existed, but I hadn't seen it yet. And I clicked into that, and immediately I knew, okay, these are some dots that need to be connected. We're going to have to connect them. And I will tell you right now, I'll play that clip for you in just a moment. But the clip has Joni Lamb, Marcus Lamb, and Rod Parsley. And, you know, it is the 16th of January. And how long have we been on this subject? Like almost 2 months. But I can tell you that this subject is not going away, and it will not go away until there is some change. And so there is a lot of ground to cover. So let's get.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I won't be
And as always, you know, if you can please like, please share, and please share. And as you come on, we a little bit light in attendance today, but that's all right. That's okay. Many of us will catch this on the rebound. I'm gonna begin by playing this clip, and I'm just gonna let it play in its entirety. I believe it's about 90 seconds, but in this 90 seconds, so much is going to be revealed that it'll take quite a while to talk about it. And here we go.
And I were born in the same year. T.D. Jakes, Marcus, and me, and a 57 Chevy. And I want to say, for whatever it means for whoever would be watching or hearing me now, I know no two people on earth more anointed of God, more sold out to God, more dedicated to God, and they are the most least pretentious people I've ever known. Joni currently has a best-selling book on the New York Times bestseller list. They've built the great Daystar network that spans the world, and God will continue to use them. I could not be more honored or more proud to turn this service over to them to do with as they will. I sense an anointing to destroy every yoke and break every burden. The wonderful Daystar singers have traveled all this way to be with us tonight, and I want them to take their liberty. This is their house on their network. They can do with it as they please. Would you tell them how glad you are they made it all the way to the great tabernacle of World Harvest Church?
Well, let's give God the praise and God the glory.
Well, I would ask if you would be kind enough to just weigh in where you're watching from. It would be appreciated. I don't know what's up with my screen. I'm seeing all these people in the comments, and yet my screen is saying we have one person in attendance. And hey, if we have nobody in attendance and everybody sees everything on the replay, that's fine. But just, I don't know what's up with that, and that's all fine. So this is from 2008, folks. It's from 2008. And just in the content that we saw, it's just, wait a second. A lot of stuff just doesn't line up. And please believe me, it is worth going through, and that is what we're going to do tonight. But I'm going to divert just for a moment, and I'm going to ask whether you're with us live right now or if you see this on the replay. I am going to ask for prayer, and I'm going to ask for prayer for a very good friend of mine. His name is Eric Phim. And I'm going to play this very brief clip where he helped me and Pastor Dan back in August, I think it was. And I'll explain why we need prayer for him. And then we'll get into the program. But I'm going to play this right now.
Joking and kidding aside, is that selling prayer or not?
Absolutely. It's no different again than what Rome was doing with indulgences. And by the way,
I was going to say same thing, Eric. Yeah.
What we need in Pentecost is a Martin Luther type to stand up and nail 95 new theses on some door somewhere, rebuking every one of these charlatans for what they are.
I'm going to just jump out of that. Eric has some medical issues that have been with him really since he was born. And he's been a brave champion, and he and I talk pretty often, but I hadn't heard from Eric in a while. And I got a call today, and I would ask you to please pray for Eric. Eric had to call 911 on Friday of last week. They took him to the hospital and with a heart attack. And there's also some trouble with his kidneys. And he said that they were able to remove like 130 to 140 blood clots from the widowmaker artery or whatever it is. And I've never forgotten that comment that Eric made about the 95 thesis in Martin Luther and how we need something like that in the church today. But I would ask you to pray for Eric. He's a wonderful, fine young man. He's been beat up some, but he champions on. So I would really, really appreciate it. Now, I'm going to go back and maybe just play a little bit of this.
And I were born in the same year. T.D. Jakes, Marcus, and me, and a 57 Chevy.
Okay.
And I want to say, for whatever it means for whoever would be watching or hearing me now, I know no two people on earth more anointed of God, more sold out to God, more dedicated to God, and they are the most least pretentious people I've ever known.
Okay, we're gonna stop right there, folks. This isn't about just trying to drag somebody down or looking for something negative that you can say, but maybe I'll say it like this. This is something that I think that we need. This is 1 Corinthians 3. What then is Apollos and what is Paul? They're servants through whom you have believed, as the Lord has assigned each to his role. I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God made it grow. So neither he who plants or he who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. He who plants and he who waters are one in purpose. Each will be rewarded according to his own labor. And then 1 Corinthians 12, I'll boast about such a man, but I will not boast about myself except in weaknesses. Even if I wanted to boast, I would not be a fool because I would be speaking the truth. But I refrain so no one will credit me with more than he sees in me or hears from me. First of all, in that exchange, it just becomes so distasteful. I don't know why someone, if they're going to be a guest speaker in someone else's event or church, why can't they just get up there to talk? But no, that's not allowed, because if you're the guest speaker at a highfalutin church, you got to take at least 10 minutes, and the person that's introducing the speaker has to spend like 10 minutes fluffing them, telling the whole world how great they are, how wonderful, how powerful, how anointed, how this or that. And then when the speaker gets the microphone, he has to tell everybody how powerful their host is. And you're so fortunate to have this preacher or this pastor or this minister. And I wish that I lived in this city, because if I lived in this city, then all I would do is walk around being thankful for that. So that is one thing that's going on. But the other thing that is going on in that clip that you just saw is the year is 2008. Now let that sink in for just a minute. It's 2008. So this is 1 year, almost a year, like to the month, that the affair that Marcus Lamb had, that lasted 7 years, we believe. That's never really been refuted. So the year after the affair, Marcus Lamb and Joni Lamb are flitting about the country, ministering in churches, and everything is great and everything is fine. And according to Rod Parsley, they are the most great, the most sincere, the most anointed, the most, wonderful that the world has ever seen. And that's the year after the affair was discovered. Now, just let that sink in for a minute. So any notion, see, some people aren't even of the opinion that, like, after an affair, that a minister can recover and be restored to ministry. I'm not even going to debate that. But what I will point out is, has that process even happened? Here it is, a year after, and Joni's got a bestseller. We're going to talk about that bestseller in a moment. And Marcus is going to preach. And you know what? To his credit, if you go through that video, Marcus did an admirable job, quoted a lot of scripture, seemed very pulled together, very polished. And then there's another thing about that. And I was able to do a program with Robin Torgerson of Megamaniacs, who worked at World Harvest Church for almost 4 full years as human resources director, and discovered the fake, mostly fake, almost 100% fake prayer cloth display. And then in that video, you will hear them say there's 300,000 prayer requests, and everything about that is just weird. I won't rehash that, but no, there aren't individual prayer cloths that get prayed over and sent back to individual people. So what I'm saying, folks, is everything about those 90 seconds it doesn't hold water, and there's a lot of problems with it. But I've got a slide, and I want to go to it right now. Okay, so he just got through saying that Joni has did he say New York Times? But I know he said the word bestseller. So I heard that word, and then something clicked. So I went to Amazon, and I wondered, how many books has Joni Lamb written? Now, as far as Amazon is concerned, she has written 2 books. The most recent is Through the Storm, and notice the date, April 2nd, 2024. And the only other book on Amazon is Surrender All, Your Answer to Living with Peace, Power, and Purpose. And the date listed on that is September 16th, 2008. So I'm just going to ask the question, is that how you do it? Is that what you do? When you've made a big mess, when stuff is really wrong, when there's been some pretty egregious sin committed. Well, there was the sin committed with the adultery. And then there was the way that the people that brought it to their attention were treated. Maybe I'm ahead of myself. So what do you do when that happens? You write a book. You write a book. I want you to see that in 2007, the news has gotten out. It's gone from being only Marcus knows about it. Now other people have discovered it, and they've brought it to Joni's attention and Joni's dad's attention. So the affair is discovered. Nobody steps down. Nobody notifies any denominational officials. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So then what do? You write a book. You write a book, and you release it as soon as you can. So that happens in 2008. Then I thought, well, goodness gracious, is this just a repeat? Because the latest book, Through the Storm, or whatever it's called. So you get into this creepy, weird, strange marriage with Douglas Wise. You kind of blow up your relationship with your oldest son and his wife. You strain the daylights out of all of the relationship with your children. I don't have to rehash all that. Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson and Pastor Ray and many others have gone through all of that. So what you do is, when you've gone through that and it's a big, big, big question mark, what do? You write a book, and you release a book, and you go on a book tour. I don't know if you see what I'm seeing here, but it kind of looks like a pattern. And so I just got to ask, folks, what is the purpose of a book? I mean, really, what is the purpose of the next, let me see. The next book Joni writes will be titled After the Blessed You Know What. Sorry, couldn't resist. It'll make, okay. I'm going to back up a minute and catch my train of thought. What is the purpose of a book? I've loved books all of my life. Here's a personal tidbit of information. My mom taught me how to read before I went to first grade. And I've been a reader ever since. And in elementary school, some people thought I was weird because I read like a book a day. And I would stay up late at night. And I remember my third grade teacher at Tiffin Elementary in Defiance County thought I was faking it because I used to come to school with those Reader's Digest, those hardcover condensed books. But I was always reading books. I was always reading. So I like books, but I thought books were about telling a story or giving important information to somebody else, but maybe that's not what books are for. I think what books are for are so that if people write a book so that they can have on their resume, I wrote a book. And if you have on your resume that you wrote a book, then other people are impressed by the fact that I wrote a book. And in fact, it would seem like that is the real purpose, because how many people in Christian ministry write books that they didn't even write? Now, we've done enough coverage on this program and working with Robin from Robin Torgrimson and Megamaniacs. I'm sorry, allegedly, Rod Parsley that has written 200 books. He's never written one of them. It's ghostwriters. And so did Joni write Surrender All? Did she write Through the Storm? That's not even the purpose. The purpose of writing a book is so that you can tell everybody else that you wrote a book, and so that people know that you're an author and that you wrote a book, and that way you can go on a book tour and you can do interviews and you can do launches and you can do all of this stuff. And it's probably a really good idea to do a book right after you really made a mess of something. That seems to be the pattern. Now, Rod Parsley said that she had a bestseller. I don't know if he said New York Times bestseller, but then we're going to get into this. All right. In this, and I want to say thank you to Candy Shand, because she sent me this article because I was rude enough to say, where did I read this before? And she sent this to me. So thank you, Candy. But this is from an NPR article that's dated clear back to 2018. But in the article, it talks about some finances of Daystar that were discoverable because they were part of a court case. So that makes all the information, the financial information that was discoverable, it makes it pretty special information, because Daystar is filed with the IRS as a church. So don't nobody get to see any of their financial information. But since it was part of a court case, some of this was. And this, I just wanted to show from the article that in addition to funding almost $500,000 for a Daystar NASCAR, I think that's NASCAR, some kind of race car. Okay. It also shows you that, where did it say? Started church, and $97,320 spent at retail bookstores to buy up copies of Joni Lamb's autobiography, pardon me, Surrender All. Now, here's something, and while we're on this, and then I'll talk about it. And then, thank you, Susan Puzio. Susan sent me this because I couldn't find it. This is a receipt from Books A Million, booksamillion.com. And the amount is, it's so small when I look at it, $125,990, I believe it is. $125,000 that was spent with Books A Million to buy copies of Joni Lamb's book. Okay, so what is this all about? Well, let me just say it this way. These guys do this. What the two receipts or the two pieces of documentation that I just showed you is evidence of the fact that for someone to be able to be a guest speaker and have the pastor say she has a best-selling book out or a New York Times bestseller or similar language, to get there, sometimes what you got to do is buy your own book. So let me just let the little cat out of the bag right now. The documentation exists that for Joni Lamb's Surrender All book, they had to spend probably, it looks like $250,000 to buy enough copies to put it on the bestseller list. And now I'm going to reference Rod Parsley. I'm going to reference Robin Torgrimson of Megamaniacs, because I remembered that Robin had covered this on one of her podcast episodes, and she had told me this before. But Robin will tell you, if you can ever get her to get on the phone and tell you this, she will tell you this, that Megan Hassett, allegedly, no, I don't, bring it on, brother, that Megan Hassett, like executive assistant to Rod Parsley at the time, just frankly spilled the beans to Robin that, yeah, World Harvest Church would spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars when a new book was released to buy copies of it. And you couldn't buy all the copies from one spot. You had to buy them from a half dozen different locations, geographically separated from each other, to give it the resemblance of actual traffic, because that's what you have to do to put it on the New York Times bestseller list. Is this tracking with anybody out there? Is anybody tracking with me on this one? The point is, for me, is this is so fake and phony, Joni. It's so fake and phony, Joni and Rod, but it looks impressive. It looks like, whoa, best-selling author. Oh, why are you writing a book? Now, I will say this, probably, if you read both of those books, it would be motivational, inspirational to a degree, but why do you have to fake about it? And why do you have to lie about it? And I hope that you will pray for my friend Eric Phim. But see, that would have been that's one of the things that we need a 95-point thesis nailed to the door on, is all this fakery and all this fake imagery. It's time for it to stop. Paula says, phony Joni. And Mary says, I heard that years ago. Thanks for bringing it to light. And Mary, that's how that works. So I'm going to ask you again, what is the purpose of a book? And what is the purpose of writing a book? And why does an author get in? Oh, I'll tell you another book story. I will tell you another book story. And this is hearsay, but I've got it in a document I had on this program. Timo Edge, who worked alongside and got really burned by, and thank the Lord got away from, Bishop David Amos. And Bishop David Amos, who is the, I guess they brought him back at World Harvest. Oh, after a brief, we don't know what happened. Yeah, we do know what happened. But actually, Timo's very good with pen and paper. He can put thoughts down very cogently, very, very well. He's good with that. And Bishop Amos had talked to him about being a ghostwriter and writing a book for him. And according to Timo, and Timo's got 1,000% credibility with me, he said, well, why don't we just write a book together and you get credit and I get credit? But Bishop Amos didn't want to have any part of that and tried to sell him on the idea of how much of an honor it would be to be his ghostwriter. And folks, this phony stuff has got to go. So I'm going to go back to this clip here.
Joni currently has a best-selling book on the New York Times bestseller list.
He said
they've built.
So I just want to point out, I am asserting, and I believe we have it on good authority, that when Rod Parsley said she has a book on the New York Times best-selling list, that yeah, it was there because donor money had been spent to buy its way onto the New York Times bestseller. And you know what? There are some ministries on television, they won't even have a guest on if that guest doesn't have a book. Why? Because that's how they do their offering pitch. So if some preacher, some minister, some servant of the Lord really has something to say that might be powerful and might really impact the viewer and the listener, but they don't have a book, you can't have them on the program. Why? Because we only have people on the program that have books, because that's what we know how to hawk, and that's what we know how to make work. I'm going to let this play a little bit further up. Then we got plenty of stuff we got to get to.
Daystar network that spans the world. God will continue to use them. I could not be more honored or more proud to turn this service over to them to do with as they will. I sense an anointing to destroy every yoke and break every burden. The wonderful Daystar singers have traveled all this way to be.
Okay. That's enough of that. So let me get back over here. Now, see, here's another couple of things that's bugging me about this. This is an article from the Columbus Dispatch that just points out. See, this time, the time of the video that you're watching is 2008. Well, there was a couple that had to sue World Harvest Church and Rod Parsley in 2006. Why? Because they had a toddler, a young child, I think it was 2 years old, that was in their daycare that got beaten with a knife, beaten, spanked, had welts, had even, and I'm not Douglas Wise, but I'm going to say the P word, even was bruised and harmed on his private area that starts with a P. I'm just not, I can't do that. And see if this sounds familiar. The couple had to file a suit against World Harvest because when they reported, and when their child got home, they had him, they examined the kid, and he's beat, he's got welts. I think the skin was broken in at least one place, but they took them to the doctor and the medical professionals. It's there in the lawsuit. And thank you, Robin, for sending that to me. And we were able to find that in the Columbus Dispatch. But the medical professional says, yeah, this is abuse. And so how did World Harvest respond? They responded by saying, if you ever come on this property again, we will have you arrested for trespass. So they forced them to sue them. And they lost. And it eventually, 2 or 3 years later, it was eventually went to trial and was awarded like $7 million, but that got pared down and a settlement was reached for $3.1 million. And then Rod Parsley turns around and sues Grange Insurance Company, expecting them to pay all of that, and that was defeated. But folks, the reason I'm going into all this is if you go back to what we were just looking at, let me get back over here
with us
again.
tonight.
You've got a guy that's introducing this couple that's got so much scandal, so much weird stuff going on. His dad and him were sued because his father in the lawsuit was sued for inappropriate, nasty, nasty stuff that Rod Parsley's dad was saying to Rod Parsley's aunt. And you run, you cover, you use lawyers, and instead of making things right or admitting you have a problem, what do? You write a book and you invite people to the church that have written a book. So if we get back over here. Now, the year's 2008. Now, guys, I'm giving you a hint right now for all of you regulars. I will just say this. Robin at Megamaniacs has brought out so much stuff that has needed to be brought out. It will curl the hair of a bald man. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm just going to tell you right now, you have not heard the worst concerning the conduct and the behavior of Rod Parsley. You have not heard the worst. So buckle up and get ready. You've not heard the worst. So where do we go from here? I'm looking at, yes. And Rhea says, we stand with Robin. She will not be silenced. I'm not going to steal any thunder, Rhea, but you're absolutely right. She will not be silenced. So let me just keep the program moving. I'm at 30 minutes. I'm just trying to point out that this is what has passed for real ministry. You have a guy that's on their network that's introducing people that instead of repenting, instead of getting off the stage, instead of getting out of the limelight and maybe really working on their issues, no, we're going to write a book because we're book writers and we're bestsellers and we're awesome and we're great. And we'll get people to introduce us as such. And the person introducing them, folks, I just want you to remember the time, 2008. 2008 comes right after the year 2007, and that's going to be really relevant in about a week or two, and that's the best I can do. I want to play this one.
There was an individual that cared about me and cared about him that had some information where they believed that this could be going on, and they came to me and shared the information with me, and I confronted him the same day.
And you knew this woman?
Yes.
Because you said you had recognized something wasn't right.
Okay, what is that? That is a clip of Joni and Marcus Lamb on the Dr. Phil show, and it would have been like early December of 2010. Now, why am I playing that? I'm trying to show you the level of hypocrisy. So, as we've covered on this program, there were 3 individuals that suffered wrongful termination or just extreme workplace harassment. I may have misstated that in the last program. 2, it was wrongful termination. And Jeanette Hawkins, who was one of the original couple of people that had to discover, because of the emails that a coworker found, the affair of Marcus Lamb. She is the one that took that information, first of all, to the Kindles. We're going to talk about the Kindles in just a minute. And the Kindle said, yep, he needs to step down. He should be out of the limelight and get some restoration or healing, but he needs to step down from the ministry. But we're not going to do a thing about it. We're not going to talk about it. And they just bowed out. And then it was Jeanette Hawkins that had to take that information to Joni Lamb's dad, Mr. Trammell, who then passed up the information to Joni. And then the next day, we may take a look at that. But the reason I wanted to play this clip is Dr. Phil point blank asks Joni Lamb how she found out about the affair, and listen to her answer. Yes, I'm playing it again.
How'd you find out?
There was an individual that cared about me and cared about him that had some information where they believed that this could be going on, and they came to me and shared the information with me, and I confronted.
So Dr. Phil point blank asks her, how did you find out? And she says, there's an individual that cared about me and cared about him, that would be Marcus, and brought this information to me. And so she is either talking about Jeanette Hawkins, and here it is. It's very small print for me to read, but I just going to read from the lawsuit. The Kindles advised, this would be Jeanette Hawkins, that defendant Marcus Lamb should step down from his leadership position, that he and Joni should seek marriage counseling. The Kindles told Jeanette that Marcus needed to step down. That's what the Kindles said, as alleged in the lawsuit. They refused to confront Marcus, and that left Jeanette and Mr. Brando the decision as to how exactly to present the information to the management of Daystar. So Jeanette and Brando decided to explain the situation to Trammell, who is the father of Joni Lamb, and who then occupied management position at Daystar. They did so, provided a copy of the emails to him. He thanked them, told them that he would provide a copy of the emails to Joni Lamb. Almost immediately thereafter, Joni Lamb called plaintiff and thanked her for bringing the affair to light. Now, if that is accurate, I want you to understand how calculated and how polished of a lie what Joni Lamb just said is, because Dr. Phil just asked her how she found out. And she said that a friend that cared about me and cared about Marcus brought this information to us. But at the same time, that episode of Dr. Phil begins with, there's people trying to extort us. Folks, and so if she found out from one of these extorters, why is she calling her a friend? Folks, I hope I'm doing my job pretty good tonight. I'm a little concerned. Eric is really on my heart, but I want to say, I hope I'm doing at least an admirable job of explaining this information. But what I'm saying is the lies are so calculated and so polished. And when Dr. Phil asks her that question, to me, it looks like a calculated and predetermined answer. And it sure reminds me of that audio tape when Jonathan Lamb, her son, says, when was the tracker put on my car? And instead of speaking a date, what does she do? She says, well, we had trackers on my dad's car. Joni Lamb is very, very, very good at deflection. And in one video, I kind of made a spoof. She's really good at doing she'll be coming around the mountain. But so I want to play this next clip, and then I want you to listen to something else here. Here we go.
Many months into it, I said, how much do you trust me? And what did you say?
Well, I mean, starting off, it was lower, like after we had been to several months of counseling,
listen real
it was,
close.
30, 40%. And then every day after, not every day, but weekly, he would say, what percentage do you trust me now? And so I said, now this many years later,
Did you hear those words? Please listen for now. These or this many years later.
So I said, now this many years later, it's 99.9. So
I'm just giving you my gut on this. And I know that some of this is rehash material for a lot of us. But she's supposedly answering the question of where her trust level is. But notice how she throws out there, now these many years later, or this many years later, they made the determination that they would talk about this affair as though it happened way in the past. And this is a 2010 appearance on Dr. Phil. Now, if the affair came to light in the fall of 2007, then you're talking about, at the most, like 2 years, 2.5 years. Do you really refer to a 2.5 at the longest period as this many years later or these many years later? Is that a natural thing to say? Or is it a contrived thing to say? And the reason I'm going through this is, again, going back to that original piece of video. These are the people that a year after the affair comes to light from within the organization are still keeping it quiet, are still putting on a happy face to the world, still writing books, still maintaining this false front with a pastor who is maintaining a false front. And you're going to learn more about a false front within the next week or so as regards to Rod Parsley, but I digress. But I want to keep going because I think this is now. I'm going to play this clip.
And, we went through some steps, and the last step that we went through was, last was, first of all, keep it private as long as you can, because when people are sick, they need to be in intensive care.
Give themselves some time to heal.
Give themselves
Not
some
in
time
public.
to heal.
Oh my gosh. That first clip made me want to go back and look at this. And folks, here's just what I want to say. This is Mr. Redwig, Mr. Kendall, talking about this private thing. And just ask yourself, if a preacher is found to be in an affair, a 7-year affair, what be supposed to happen? What is supposed to happen? Do they just continue on and maybe write a book and everything is great and we're wonderful and everything's wonderful, and you talk to John Lynch, the lawyer, and you say, hey man, keep everything smoothing along because everything is wonderful? Or do you have to face some consequences? And do you have to step down or whatever? But let me play this clip for you again and listen to Mr. Kendall here.
And, we went through some steps, and the last step that we went through was, next to the last was, first of all, keep it private as long as you can, because when people are sick, they need to be in intensive care.
Is that true, or is that part of their orchestrated campaign? Because this guy, and I'm of the position of the opinion that the lawsuits are credible. And I just read from you in the lawsuit where, according to Jeanette Hawkins, they met with the Kendall. They didn't ask to become aware of this information. Jeanette Hawkins thinks she's working for a morally upright, righteous, and pure ministry, and questions them very thoroughly in the interview process with Marcus Lamb, with Janice Smith, the #1 production assistant to Marcus Lamb at that time, and does everything she can to assure herself that this is the real deal. This is really a Christian ministry and a Christian environment. Didn't ask to become aware of the information that was presented to her by a co-worker with emails to back it up that Marcus Lamb's having an affair. And he's having an affair with the other lady that I interviewed. And how unnerving and how earth-shattering would that be? And then meets with the Kendalls, and the lawsuit says, and I believe the lawsuit says, that the Kendalls said he needs to step down and get some counseling or get some help, but he needs to step down from the ministry. But you just heard Mr. Kendall, Mr. Redwig say, I'll play it one more.
And, we went through some steps, and the last step that we went through was, next to the last was, first of all, keep it private as long as you can, because when people are sick, they need to be in intensive care.
Folks, I want you to realize that man is lying. Lying. Nobody would give that counsel to somebody in ministry. Nobody would give that counsel. And I believe the lawsuit, and I believe that he's contradicting himself from what he initially told Jeanette, but he's lying. But that just points to this is so carefully orchestrated. Now, what you just saw, that appearance on Dr. Phil, yes, it's from 2010. And the clip that I showed with Rod Parsley and Joni and Marcus, that was from 2008. But I'm trying to paint a picture of just how much deception is going on. But hey, somebody wrote a book. Yay, it's wonderful. They wrote a book and it's life-changing. And I bought a couple $100,000 worth of copies to push it into the bestseller category because it's wonderful and it's life-changing and it's wonderful, and I'll sign it in the foyer. All right. Maybe I can get off of that, but let's do this. I want to play this next one. I want to play this. Seeing this that happened in 2008 at Rod Parsley, it just, for me, it starts connecting these dots that this is a pattern not only of deception on these individual items, but it's just the way people roll. Hey, here's a question. How bad would it be if in the Christian ministry and media space and church world, what if you just didn't allow phoniness anymore? What if you just didn't hype stuff anymore? What if there weren't any more celebrity Christians, celebrity preachers, and everybody's awesome and everybody's wonderful and everybody is all of that plus 3 bags of chips? Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Let me play this clip. I want to play it for you.
At the time that some of this took place, you stepped down as far as actual
From preaching.
From preaching.
Okay, now I'm going to pause right there. Keep in mind that Jeanette Hawkins and her co-worker brought this information to Joni's dad sometime in the fall or extremely late summer, but it would have been late 2007, brought it to Joni's dad in 2007, and then according to the lawsuit, the next day got kind of a thank you for letting me know from Joni Lamb. And then, yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, I just assume everybody knows this. They immediately made the adulteress had to move out of the state and made some kind of deal that her house would be taken care of and some kind of contract to make sure she got some money and some hush money. That all happened. But then Jeanette Hawkins was forced to join in with the lying effort about whatever happened to Janice Smith. And she was coerced into that lying effort to tell a story that wasn't true. But that was in 2007. And the clip that I started off with Rod Parsley and World Harvest Church, that was 2008. And Marcus is preaching in that service. So 2007, the affair comes out. 2008, they're out there selling books, preaching places. And Dr. Phil is going to ask Marcus if he had to step down. Listen to this answer. Listen to this.
At the time that some of this took place, you stepped down as far as actual
From preaching.
From preaching. Is that still the case?
No, sir. I am back preaching. However, I am submitting to the denomination that has ordained me. And so that will mean that I will step down for at least a year from preaching, and then a second year I will be on probation, and that's just part of the consequences of sin.
Folks, this is almost like impossible to wrap your head around, and I am going to play exactly that at least one more time. So, they've never said when the affair happened on Dr. Phil. They've never said. They've never said when it was discovered. Did you notice that? And so Joni will say these many years later, or all these years later. So you're trying to create this without being backed in a corner when you have to give an actual date and time. You're trying to create the impression that this is way in the past, when in fact it was at the most 2.5 years old at that point. So that's part of it. But Dr. Phil, I'm going to play it again in just a minute, but I'm trying to set this up. Dr. Phil is trying to say, when all this happened, see, he's thinking it's in the past. They haven't been honest with him either, in my opinion. But they're saying, when all this happened, did you have to step down from preaching? And if you listen, he says yes. And then Phil's going to say, are you back preaching now? And he says, yes, but now I have to step down because my denomination, the Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, is going to make me do that. Let me just play this and we'll take it. I'm telling you, folks, this is such practiced deception. And this is the way this stuff has been able to function for far too long. Listen,
now, at the time that some of this took place, you stepped down as far as actual
from preaching.
From preaching.
See how that's okay. So first of all, at the time that this took place, Phil says, you stepped down. And look what he did. He says, from preaching. But he doesn't say yes or no. He just says from preaching. But we know that actually Marcus did not step down from preaching, because I began the program with a clip where Marcus was preaching for Rod Parsley's fake anointed prayer cloth service with Joni. So he has not stepped down from preaching. He never did step down from preaching. But listen to the rest of the answer. Well, if I can hit the play button. There you
Is
go.
that still the case?
No, sir. I am back preaching.
Okay, and see, now he's saying, I'm back preaching. Well, wait a minute, Marcus. When did you actually step down? When did you? I don't think he ever stepped down. He didn't step down for that 08. I'm going to play it one more time.
Some of this took place. You stepped down as far as actual
From preaching.
from preaching. Is that still the case?
No, sir. I am back preaching. However, I am.
There it is. Did you step down from preaching? And then he said, is that, so that's not an answer, yes or no. And he said, are you still, I lose track. It's just too crazy. But listen to this.
Submitting to the denomination that has ordained me.
I'm going to let it play.
And so that will mean that I will step down for at least a year from preaching. And then a second year, I will be on probation. And that's just part of the consequences of sin.
Please listen.
Because they're just now finding out about it. Because again, Fred and Anna felt like it was important.
Okay. No way. And the more I watch this Joni, boy, she knows how to insert herself. But let's just break this down together, folks. Phil is asking, when this happened, did you have to step down? And Marcus is being real from preaching. And then he asks him, is that still the case? And he's no. And of course, he never did step down from preaching. And now what's come out is, but I'm going to have to take a year off of preaching, and then I'll be a year on probation. Listen to this. This is very important. Because of my denomination. Let me say that again. Because of my denomination. Now, the Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, is actually a real denomination, an incredible denomination. I don't know everybody in that denomination. Nobody does. But let's consider them a credible and a real denomination. These guys didn't know what had happened. So what I'm pointing out is Kendall, Redwig's husband, that just carefully stated they need to be in intensive care, and we knew we needed to keep this private as long as we could so that they can heal up. Nobody believes that. That's nobody's standard advice to a morally failed minister. But here's the point that I want to make. They conspired to hide it from the Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, the denomination that Marcus Lamb is credentialed with and is a bishop, according to the court records. So think about that. Think about that. These same people that are going out in the year after this affair becomes knowledge within the ranks of Daystar and are writing best-selling books on the New York Times bestseller and preaching around, what are they doing while they're doing that? They are hiding this adultery. They are hiding all of this from the denomination that Marcus Lamb is credentialed with. I'm gonna take a comment here. Exactly. His ordination denomination was not aware, and he was not under their discipline. And why weren't they? Oh, because the Kendall said from the very beginning, the same Kendall that told Jeanette Hawkins in the lawsuit, yeah, he needs to step down. But that Kendall that said, yeah, he needs to step down is the Kendall that said, no, actually, we need to hide this from his denomination. Oh, my goodness. Now listen. And now Joni, I think she thinks she's stepping in and going to salvage the exchange or keep steering it in the right direction. Actually, I think she lets some cat out of the bag. I'm trying to start this midway. I hope I'm right.
Just now finding out about it. Because again, Fred and Anna felt like it was important that we have that.
And that's just part of the consequences of sin.
Y'all, I'm bad about this. I stop and I start. I stop and I start. So Marcus is trying to put all the onus on him. Yeah, I gotta I hope you think that I took some time off, and I'm not going to say that I took some time off, but I'm okay if I create the impression and you go with the impression that I took some time off. But now I got to take some time off if I want to stay with the Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, and I'll be off for a year. And then for another year, I'll be on probation because that's just the consequences of sin. And here comes
a
Joni
year
to
from
the rescue.
preaching, and then a second year I will be on probation. And that's just part of the consequences of sin.
I'm so transparent.
Because they're just now finding out about it. Because again, Fred and Anna felt like it was important that we have that private time to heal. I think that was really important for us, that we have that time. And so we don't feel that, and he doesn't feel like just because he's the head of a network, that he, should not submit to the denomination that we both grew up.
This is so twisted. Please let me play this again. I want you to hear it now. I want to say this.
Feel that, and he doesn't feel like just because he's the head of a network, that he.
Okay, so she's saying they are just finding out about it. So yeah, he'll have to take some time off, and then he'll be on probation. But they're just finding out about it because Fred and Anna Kendall said, we'll do everything we can to keep them from finding out about it. So we conspired with Fred and Anna Kendall to keep the denomination from finding out about it. We did that. We needed that time to heal. Oh yeah, we needed that time to heal. We needed to keep it secret. We conspired together to keep that hidden from the denomination that Marcus is ordained with. But now that it's come out, just because Marcus is the head of this great big highfalutin thing called Daystar, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have to submit, even though for 2.5 years we didn't submit because Fred and Anna Kendall did what we told them to do. We told them to tell us that we don't have to submit. Folks, does that make sense? This is a lot of mental gymnastics, y'all. A lot of
should not submit to the denomination that we both grew up in.
But during that time, you will.
Why are you talking about trying to give some kind of kudos to a denomination that you both grew up in when you're not, when you're just treating them like they're a convenience, Joni? You know that your denomination would have had him step down. You know that. So don't act later like it was anything else but you trying to keep a secret. And if you'd have sold another 1,000 books, it would have only cost you $125,959. Maybe that would have saved it, folks. I'm going to let this play out, and then I think we're going to bring this thing to a wrap here, y'all.
Will be missed.
Thank you.
I can tell you will be missed.
I just got to let this play. I think they did a number
during that time, you will be missed.
Thank you.
I can tell you will be missed.
Okay, so they did a good sales job on Dr. Phil because honestly, Dr. Phil's pretty sharp, but I don't think he quite figured it out. And then I just got to play this. I'll show you that they really did a good job. Watch this. Watch this.
And Joni did not ask me to do this, but nonetheless, I'm going to. Everybody in the audience is going home with a copy of Joni's book, Surrender All. Now,
oh, and you close the program with giving everybody in the studio audience a copy of the book that they bought their way onto the New York Times bestseller with. And they're joining the ranks of Rod Parsley. If Rod Parsley had been on that program, he probably would have done the same thing. Folks, I hope that this made some sense to you. When I watched that, I keep looking for something that's real, something that's completely 100% true, without any twisting, without any shading, without any angle. And honestly, I just can't find it. Let's just review a little bit because I'm always bad about closing. But in 2007, late in the year, the affair became public and became knowledge within the Daystar ranks. And of course, if you talked about it, you probably get smacked over the head or fired or whatever. And 2008, we've got the video of Joni releasing this book. and them going around the country with the Daystar singers and Marcus, and they're certainly not taking time off from preaching. But then later, when it does come out that people are known about it, then you turn that into an extortion narrative, which isn't true. And then when it's coming out, you fight against this distortion or this extortion narrative. You launch this extortion narrative, and when you're point blank asked by Dr. Phil, you took some time off, didn't you, from preaching? He doesn't give an answer, and then he kind of nods and winks, makes it sound like he did take some time off, but we were hiding that from like if you'd have told the denomination back then with the time that you didn't take off, but you're saying you took off, would that have accounted? Or anyway, folks, I better just shut up. This is Lord, folks, we can do so much better. I appreciate everybody. My screen, I'm seeing from comments that there are people here. My screen says there's 2 people that are paying attention. I don't know why that is, but I would ask you, I'm going to put it in the link. If you'd like to support the program, I posted the link, and every little bit is appreciated. Folks, we have some pretty significant information that's going to be released within the next 2 weeks. So I would ask you to keep watching. It's not going to be pleasant to become aware of, but it's information nonetheless that needs to be disseminated, and people need to know. We need to know what we're doing with. So until next time, please like, please share, please subscribe, please like the video, do all of that. And until next time, God bless you. God bless your family. God bless the state of Ohio. And God bless the United States of America. Love you guys. Appreciate you, and have a good night. Bye-bye.